Hey guys, Jimmy here. Today we're going to be reacting to some more fan-made Loomian. So I did this video idea like a couple of months ago and a lot of people seem to enjoy it, so I thought, hey, why not do another one? Although rather than completely copy and pasting that idea just with different designs, so it's not like too boring, it's the exact same, I thought, why don't I have like a theme behind this one? So obviously with the Route 8 update and the UMV update like right around the corner, I thought a fitting theme would be a fossil theme. So all of these designs like basically fossils. So obviously if you guys enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like. It lets me know if you want to see more of these sorts of videos, and if you actually do want to see more of these videos, let me know some more themes potentially that you would like to see in the comments down below, like something like such as megas for example. And also if you're new to the channel, if you enjoyed the video, like why not hit the subscribe button, okay? So you guys see like more Loomian Legacy content, and also helps out the channel grow. So yeah, last thing before we actually get into the video is I want to explain that these are all fan-made designs by artists, and they aren't going to be put into the actual game just because they're in this video. And obviously because I work on the game for balancing wise like stats and stuff, I thought it'd be more interesting for the video if I gave all of these fan-made designs their own stats, abilities and typings if they didn't already have one, rather than just looking at the images and reacting to them. Also just to like make the fan designs like feel more special and such. And also with that being said, let's now jump into the designs. Okay then, so coming in first we have Obviostyle. Should mention, probably going to pronounce a lot of these names wrong, and probably a lot of the artists' names wrong as well. I'm just really bad at pronouncing names. But Obviostyle was designed by Baze Bastra, which I should mention. All of the artists' Twitters will be linked in the description if you're going to go check them out, or maybe drop them a follow, whatever you want to do, okay? But yeah, but for Obviostyle, which by the way is a light and earth typing, which is pretty cool. I mean, we haven't seen them in the game right now. Actually, there's not really been too many like dual typings with Earth at least right now. But for the design, it kind of reminds me of little like tiny raptor dinosaurs, or kind of like in Jurassic Park, which was kind of cool, but kind of like giving like a more softer touch overall. And it has gemstones incorporated into the design, which is kind of similar to like Gecko and Eliguana, which I think is kind of cool. And obviously the colors for the Loomians are really vibrant, which goes pretty well with the design overall. Okay, so for Obviostyle's stats line, I took a more quicker and offensive approach to it, since I think it made sense for its design. Kind of like similar to Gobodemic for example. So I've given it really high speed and a really like good offensive stats in both its melee attack and its range attack, although it will primarily be a range attacker, but it has really good melee attack as well. Like it's not too far behind its range attack, so you can run it as a melee attacker build if you wanted to, or I feel like a mixed attacking set would probably be more beneficial. And the reason why I did that is because Light and Earth is like a pretty unique typing that right now, at least in the game, Earth is like heavily more suited to being like a melee attacker who's just spamming earthquakes for example, and light typing right now again is the complete opposite, like primarily right now being a complete range attacking offensive typing, which also like spamming gamma pulses or flash and flee and stuff. So I thought it would make sense to also give it a complete split down both of its defenses, and then also excel in both of them if you wanted to, or just running a mixed attacking one. But obviously with all of these three stats being pretty high, it makes sense for its defenses to be pretty lackluster, so it can outspeed a lot of Loomians and also deal a lot of damage, or like decent damage if you use like stab moves. But since its defense are pretty low, it doesn't really want to take any hits in return, so this would most likely be like a revenge killing Loomian for example, or if you can set up and like try and sweep late game, that'd be basically what this role would be. And also then its last stat, which is basically energy, I just gave it like the average energy stat just so it could spam a lot of moves that it needs to, because obviously for like Loomians like this, kind of similar to like Zulong, once they run out of energy, they're kind of like, they don't really want to take that hit, so the more energy they have, I mean the more moves they can use without also getting KO'd too quickly, and also just letting your opponent get like a free move off. So that's like the stats I've gone for Obviostyle. Okay then, so last thing then is the abilities. So for this one, I think the normal abilities made a lot of sense just to give it prismatic, which is similar to like Gecko and Eliguana. Since it also has like gemstones on its body and it's also a light type, might as well use those gemstones to also absorb all the light type moves that are being used on Obviostyle. Also then for the secret ability, I didn't bother coming over like any second abilities for it, I just thought that would make the most sense. But for the secret ability, I'm not really good at naming new things, by the way, just want to mention that, so I just called it Imbued, which again is using the gemstones on its body to boost its light type moves by 25%. The idea behind it is basically that the gemstones is what is giving it a light typing in general, but once it learns how to like use these gemstones like pretty efficiently, it's able to like control it and also tap into its full potential, which also this ability to like boost its power a little bit more as well. So that's the idea behind it, and that is Obviostyle. I really love the design. Next up we have Peruptor, which was designed by Duke, which reminds me a lot of Archops, but with a lot less colors. But I do like its design a little bit more. I feel like it's more refined, and it feels like it's a fully evolved Loomian. Archops is like kind of like that. It kind of looks like a fully evolved one, but I feel like it's kind of missing something. Also for this typing, it is an ancient air type, which I think goes pretty well with the design. I can't really see it having any other typings other than potentially Earth instead of the ancient typing, but I think ancient just works better on this Loomian for its design personally. So for Peruptor's stats, I gave it kind of similar to Obviostyle's stats, the quicker and offensive build. It just made sense in my opinion for its design wise. So I gave it really high speed, but instead of like having good range attack, I gave it better melee attack and slightly less range attack, so kind of like the opposite of Obviostyle, for example. Again, you gotta run, if you want to run a melee build, a range build, or a mixture of both, a mix set, which goes pretty well I think for the typing wise. Again, having a lot of access to both melee and range moves, so pretty good there, like nosedive, maybe elemental burst if it got that, for example, primal slash stuff like that. Also then, for its defenses, I think it's design-wise that it could probably shake off quite a few of the melee attacks, so I gave it pretty decent melee defense, so it can also like take quite a couple of them, but its lowest stat is going to be its range defense. You really shouldn't leave this one in against any of the range attackers, unless it can just also outspeed them and just get rid of them before they even have the chance to attack with its pretty decent attacking stats. And also then for the last stat, energy again, I gave it like pretty average, so it can like also fire off a lot of moves as much as it can before it has to wait to rest, and also with that range defense, it doesn't want to stay against any range attackers, especially when it's very low in energy, because it ain't gonna want to take any of them with how low its range defense stat actually is. Okay, so for Peruptor's abilities then, I gave it a normal ability which is called Rough Talons. Again, I'm not that great at coming up with names, okay, but basically this ability boosts all of the moves that Peruptor uses that involve using its claws or talons by, I think, 30% would make sense for it. But for the secret ability, I gave it something called Armor Penetration, which allows Peruptor to bypass certain moves and abilities. For example, for moves like Scapegoat, it gets to bypass it completely, and for abilities, stuff like Trash Armor, for example, like Garbantis has, it would completely ignore them, also dealing damage past them, and completely ignore them completely. I think it makes sense for its design, since it's kind of like agile, and also like I can see it being pretty aggressive when it needs to be, and again like very agile, so I think the abilities make the most sense. But hey, any ability would have been better than Archops' abilities, let's be honest. But yeah, for the normal ability, also that'll be like mostly be for its melee attacking side, but for the secret ability, you could use it for any of them, for example. So yeah, that is Peruptor. Ghoulier is the next Loomian that we're going to be taking a look at, which was made by Flick, and I believe it's some sort of like prehistoric mosquito or something like that, which is pretty unique and I kind of like it. For its typing, it is a spirit and a bug type, and also if you look at the main body of it, you can actually see like it's got like either spirits like souls kind of trapped inside of it, which kind of it gives me the feeling that this Loomian like kind of like drains like the essence of other Loomians, which I kind of like the idea of. It's kind of like a Grim Reaper sort of thing, but in the form of a bug and like prehistoric mosquito sort of thing, which I really like that, by the way. Okay, and so for the stats then, I had two different routes I had in mind to take for this one. The first one was to make it kind of tiny and kind of quick, kind of like the first two Loomians that we've gone over, which made sense, but I thought I have a better idea. Since also like a lot of prehistoric animals have been known to like be gigantic in like today's standards, and you see like in movies and stuff like that, I thought why don't we go that route and make this like Grim Reaper sort of like a bug, gigantic, and it just fits in with the design so well, because like it's freaking scary, and having it be like really, really big, I kind of think makes it even more scarier, so I kind of like it. So because of that, I've gone a different route for the stats, and I kind of like made them balance like kind of across the board. Also some stats are a little bit lower than others, but also like more or less kind of balanced across the board. So then, using its size and its like kind of exoskeleton, sort of like body, I thought okay, also its melee defense and its like health should be like some of the highest stats, so I gave it the highest stat is its melee defense, with pretty good health. For its range defense, not as high as its melee defense, because also exoskeleton, but it's like pretty usable. It can definitely use it if it really needs to. Then for the speed, I thought it still deserves to be like pretty quick, but not like astonishingly quick. So I made like pretty good, like 90 is like a pretty good speed tier to be in, I think. Outspeeds a lot of the tanks basically in the game, but also it does get outspeed by quite a lot of things, but its defenses are like still usable, so it can still take a couple of hits. I can see this thing being like primarily a melee attacker, but I did give it some decent range attack, which you'll see in the ability later, which is why I boosted it a little bit more than it probably should have been. But on that, for the energy, I gave it quite a lot, so it could just spam a ton of moves without really having to worry about it so much. So yeah, that is it for the stats. Okay, and so jumping into the abilities then, for the normal ability, I gave it Drainage, which also right now only Florent has in the game, and with its like design being like a mosquito sort of thing, I thought it made sense since its primary function is basically like to drain either like health or energy from its opponent whenever it attacks them, which also I can see like having a signature move which basically does that, either drain the health, the energy, or something from the opponent. So I thought it made sense to give this as its ability, and also something else can finally use the Drain Orb item rather than just Flaunt, because at this point things can use it, but really only Flaunt uses it, so it's basically kind of like a signature item. So yeah, it's kind of cool that something else gets that. And then for the secret ability, I gave it a ability called Soul Drain. Again, I know that are great at coming up with names, but this idea I got also from the design of it, with like the spirits or the soul like seemingly trapped inside of it, like also a part of its design. The ability works similar to Bug Fever or like Moxie from Pokemon, being that if the Loomian were to get a KO with this ability, it would receive a boost to one of its stats, but it's a little bit different. The stat that is increased depends on what the highest stat was on the Loomian that you KO'd. So basically, like if you KO like a Sedimars, Sedimars' range attack is generally like the highest stat on it. So if you KO a Sedimars, you would get a range defense boost, so you get +1 range defense. If you were to KO something like a Tata, for example, which generally has like higher melee attack than all of your other stats, you would get like a melee attack boost, which is like kind of why I wanted to give its range attack like a pretty decent range attack, so it could actually use it in case it also got one of those. And also, I think it makes pretty good sense, although I will say it completely ignores like the health or the energy stats, since you can't really get like a boost for those. Although I guess you could argue saying, hey, if its highest stat is at health or energy, instead of like giving you a stat boost for all those specific stats, it would just like replenish your health a little bit or your energy by a bit, which I think is pretty good. But yeah, also like I said, just to like not completely make it a waste of an ability, if you get a range attack boost, because its range attack otherwise would be really low, I made it like kind of decent so you could actually use it if you really wanted to. So yeah, that is it for Ghoulier. Okay, so going over the final designs, we have a split evolution line from Tricera-called, I probably pronounced that wrong, I'm sorry, which also will first go over the Tricera-called, which is the melee evolution. It's like kind of like Moochin and Trumbull, like if depending on what gender they completely evolve into something else, which unfortunately they didn't give me a typing. There wasn't any typing like I could see on it, so for the Tricera-called, I gave it the typing Ice and Brawler. I think Ice and Metal could have worked on it, but seeing its design, I kind of wanted to go more for Brawler. Also, I want to like go over, I'm personally not the biggest fan of this design. I think it's a little bit like too overkill. It kind of like reminds me a lot of like a Power Ranger sort of thing, or kind of similar to Sea Knight, but like I said, a little bit overkill. So I'm not the biggest fan of this one. I prefer the female one completely, but I thought also might as well include it since he did submit both of them. But yeah, like I said, I like the intent behind it, but I do think it's a little bit overkill. Okay, and so moving on to the stats then, I gave it super high melee stats, also letting it hit really hard, and taking a lot of melee hits in return, which, looking at the design, I think it completely makes sense with its like armor and like weapons sort of like idea for it. I gave like an alright speed stat, nothing like super amazing, nothing like super bad. It outspeeds a lot of the tanks, it gets outsped by a lot of like more offensive Loomians than it. And along that, I gave like a decent health and a range defense stat. It's mostly its armor that I think gives it like the super high melee defense, and its other stats like should be like kind of lacking, so it's not like overkill in every department. Again, not really as much as its melee defense. And then for the range attack stat, I can't see it using it, so I just basically did what I did to Swalder and just basically erase it from existence. It is stupidly low, so I can like excel it in all this other stats that it will definitely be using rather than its range attack. Also, ice is a pretty good like range attacking stat, but for this design, I don't think it makes sense to use any range attack, so I dropped it as low as I could to just boost as much of its other stats as possible. And also for the energy, again, this kind of like average. I feel like for a lot of Loomians they have like between 80 and 90-ish about now. This is like optimal to like give them that something close around there, just to let them spam quite a lot of moves without having to like wait or rest too much. So yeah, that is it for the stats. Okay, so for the abilities, I gave it 2 normal abilities, which is kind of like a warrior design, so I thought, hey, this would be perfect to give it as Premonition and Confidence. I think like pretty like good things that a warrior should like be able to do really. But for the secret ability, I give it Brute Force, which again, also like with like the warrior type of design, I thought it would make a complete sense, since also it's going to use a super high offensive stats just to basically blow its targets away. So yeah, but that is it for Tricera-called. Let's go into the female version. Okay then, so moving on to the female evolution, then we have Tricera-called, which again, probably pronounced the name completely wrong. For the typing, I gave it Pure Ice. I couldn't really think of anything that suited its design like really well as a secondary typing, so I just gave it ice typing. Like, I'm sure they could have gave it like earth or something, but I think as a pure ice type, it just makes a lot of sense for it. Also for the design being like a Triceratops, I feel not really too special, just an ice Triceratops, which I'm not gonna lie, I do like this design more than the male evolution. Just the fact that, like I said, it's kind of overkill for the male one. It looks like a JoJo character, which I mean, I guess some people might like, but personally I'm not that big of a fan of. I prefer the female version. And again, Triceratops are pretty cool. Their really defensive and offensive capabilities are pretty cool. So also for that, I basically did just that for the stats and just to represent it as much as possible. So I gave it super high melee defense and health, also from its size, and its like spikes it has like along its spine and stuff like that on its body. I think it would be like kind of lacking in the range defense department. Like also it's got those spikes to also help it like from taking like biting attacks and stuff like that. But for its range, I don't think it's gonna be able to like deal with range attacks too well. So it's like on a good average, not like too low, not like too high. It's like pretty average, I'd say. Kind of like same to like the melee evolution. I gave it again super low range attack. I can't really see this thing really using too many range attacks. Like yeah, it could probably use like a frost beam if it really wanted to, but just also make its other stats as high as possible as I can physically make them. Aside to like sacrifice its range attack stat again, because we're not really going to be using it, because also its body is more designed for like melee attacks, so I might as well just make it more melee attack orientated. So also those are like pretty important stats. And other than that, also like I was talking about the melee attack, also it's still super high. I mean, also is its second highest stat. Again, if like look at its tail and also its horns, all that it has on its head, also it's pretty well-rounded like close combat attacks, which is also pretty good. And also last, I gave it a really low speed stat. I could have probably made it a little bit higher, but I just wanted to make it really slow. Also just like kind of work well in like a Bane of Haste. I don't think it really need like to have too much high speed, because it's not really going to be really using it. But instead what I did do is I made this energy stat pretty high to work well as like a supportive role, as well as like being a tank and also hitting hard as well. So I mean, overall I think it's like a pretty well-rounded Loomian. And then for the abilities, again, same as the male one, I gave it Premonition, but instead of the Confidence, I gave this one Terrifying. I also try and use that as like a more like bulky like supportive role, just give it Terrifying to also like try and scare off its targets. And then also for the secret ability, I gave it Sharp Edges. I think that makes the most sense. Is also, like I said, it has got spikes on its body, and also if a Loomian is gonna make contact with it, those spikes are gonna also hurt if it makes contact with one of them. So I think that makes the most sense for it. So yeah, that being said though, that is all of the Loomians. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments down below which was your favorite of the designs. Personally, I like a lot of them, but I think I have to go for my number one favorite out of this video. I'd probably say the Ghoulier. I love the design, like the fact that there's like ghouls in it and stuff like that, so really cool. But yeah, like I said, I like a lot of these designs. I suppose that male one that I just went over, like, it's cool. I can see why some people like it, but personally I think it's just a little bit overkill. Maybe tone it down a little bit. But yeah, that being said though, hope you guys enjoyed. Also, if you want to see another one of these, let me know in the comments down below. Also, let me know any like themes you want me to do, like for example like a mega evolution sort of thing. But yeah, that being said, I'll leave off here. See you guys next time.